Years ago, while meditating, I had a vision of who I am and how everybody is connected through God to everybody else. Within 24 hours of this experience, I then had a synchronicity that gave me much more context, which I also want to share. First, what I saw in meditation looked like this. I got a sort of download or intuitive understanding that this tip you see here is where my individual consciousness was born, and the line you see here was a delineator for where my consciousness ended. But as I expand my consciousness, this delineator line would be pushed further and further back. In the vision, my perspective then began to zoom out until I could see what my consciousness would eventually expand into. It was filled with other individual expanding consciousnesses, just like my own, that were also attempting to expand their own awareness. From what I saw, it seemed pretty clear that what I was seeing was a kind of map of how we are all connected, just not consciously due to our limited awareness. Next, I want to tell you about my synchronicity, which came from a book I was reading about Kabbalah at the time. You do not need to know anything about Kabbalah, but I just so happened to leave off in my book at something called the Tzimtzum, also known as the divine contraction. While learning about this divine contraction, the imagery immediately stood out to me as being similar to what I had seen in meditation. But as I continued reading it, I was left with little doubt in my mind that this was the same thing, but with more context. The idea in Kabbalah is that God is infinite, so in order to create a universe or an individual being, God contracts his light in order for the independent entity to experience and evolve through its own free will rather than being overwhelmed by God's infinite divine light. Interestingly, the Vesca Pisces also seems to mirror the same idea as the divine contraction, but from a different perspective. Each circle is commonly understood to represent a different polarity, with the overlap representing a womb. This is why you often see symbolism of monoliths representing the phallus at the center of the womb, representing the secret of creation that is Tzimtzum. Now that was pretty much the extent of the vision and the synchronicity, but if you noticed, I said that both a universe and a human being are said to result from a divine contraction. As some of you already know, the esoteric idea of as above, so below, or if you have a Christian background, the idea that we are created in God's image, is something my channel's name, Recursive Reality, is just another way of expressing. The reason the divine contraction works for both humans and the universe is because we are an echo of the universe. So if you understand how a baby is born from a womb that expands to make room for the baby, you can understand how the universe as a whole must do the same. This doesn't mean the universe is a giant human, but rather that it must function in the same way while taking on different variables. Hence, we live in a recursive reality, or in other words, we are made in the image of God, as above, so below. If the axiom, as above, so below, is true, we should be able to see evidence of this in the cosmos. So let's think about it. The Big Bang, think about it, is the result of creation. When a woman becomes pregnant, her uterus expands to make room for the baby to grow. What does modern astronomy show about our universe? It shows that the universe is expanding unexplainably so, at least by modern physics. The expansion of the universe is not something you can infer just by looking at the night sky. It takes modern instruments and engineering to detect such a thing, on top of the fact that the increasing rate of universal expansion is unintuitive and one of the biggest mysteries in astronomy. To me personally, that is incredible, and the more I learn, the harder it is to believe it's just a coincidence. But this is something I've been thinking about lately and wanted to share. Thanks for watching.